Okay, welcome everyone to the November meeting of the Memphis Astronomical Society. We're glad you're here, and I'm glad to be here. And before I get started, I want to make mention a couple of people and a special thank you. Some of you know my wife has struggled with some recent health issues, and she's been in the hospital for several weeks now, and that has consumed a whole lot of my time. And I really want to say thank you to Mylan, our VP of Observing, Steve Wright, our VP of Programs, and Merrill Miller, our treasurer, for really picking up the ball and carrying me through this. I have been unable to do some of the stuff that I had planned to do and hoped to do, and that impacted even our meeting last month when I was the backup presentation for our main presenter last month who wasn't able to make it, and because of the situation with my wife, I wasn't able to do it either, and that ultimately led to us canceling last month's meeting. So a very big thank you to the other members of the Memphis Astronomical Society officers and directors that have really stepped up and helped me during this time. So thank you much. Let me also mute everybody. And so let me get started here with the rest of the meeting stuff. So the Memphis Astronomical Society has a QR code, and if you scan that, it'll take you to a web page that will allow you to sign up for our newsletter or to begin the form to join the Memphis Astronomical Society. We're a 501c3 public education society, and we do a lot of things to support education in the community, public outreach, observing sessions and stuff. So at $25 a year, we think it's a plus. We have a wonderful newsletter that's just absolutely outstanding. So please join and support our organization, even if you're not interested in astronomy. Just want to support us. $25 a year. Good deal at twice the price. Yeah. On our website, you'll find our calendar. And for the month of November, we've got a couple of events coming up on Saturday the 15th. We have a star party at Mississippi River State Park, and there'll be a presentation at the park headquarters, and then out in back of that there'll be a number of Memphis Astronomical Society volunteers setting up telescopes and showing you the night sky and fun things to look at that night. Saturday, November 28th, 29th will be another one of our Beale Street Landing observing sessions. Those have turned out to be really quite encouraging to see the number of people that seem to get interested. Strolling by the Memphis, that Riverside Park is busy on Saturday evenings, Friday evenings, and a lot of people are really tickled that we're there. And I think this Saturday the 29th, if it's clear that night, the rings of Saturn should be visible, and that'll be a big public hit. So bring telescopes and help us show off. Friday night, December the 5th, is a Pinecrest Camp event, and I'm not sure that it's open to the public. I think maybe it is, but the Memphis Astronomical Society, will need volunteers to help support that. We do that regularly with them. A reminder too, there is the President's Volunteers email distribution list. It is intended for those dedicated volunteers. The requirement is if I send out an email that says, "Will you participate in this upcoming event?" I at least want a yes or no answer. Don't ignore the email. It's the only way we've been able to try to have some kind of idea about what kind of resources we're going to have available to help us with these public events. That can't be limited to just officers and directors doing this all the time. So thank you very much for those people that are members, and feel free to let me know if you want to join that elite group of dedicated volunteers. The Memphis Astronomical Society has got some new members. Thank you very much, Sachin Mali, Jay Vachaspati, sorry for butchering names, Gary Copeland, Ji Chen, Rasida Maharani, and Nikki Thomas. Thank you very much for joining the Memphis Astronomical Society. I hope you get something out of it. So we have an absolutely fabulous, wonderfully produced newsletter. Thank you, Mr. Wright. And it highlights a lot of things going on every month, including the sky map for the next month, a list of things to look at. It has a copy of our calendar in it for the month, and a lot of interesting news articles and photographs from the Memphis Astrophotography group, and a lot of cool pictures this month of the comet that's blowing through our neighborhood right now, and a fabulous short article about a wonderful thing one of our members has done to really make the Memphis Astronomical Society look like we care. Someone reached out to Brent Ellis that wanted a picture of a star that was named after his son through some organization, and we all know about those, and some of us don't have a lot of opinion about that because it just depends on who's doing. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But Brent got a picture of the star and got it sent to her, and it just, not that we're not a group of wonderful, caring people, but the world doesn't know that unless some of our members step up and do stuff like this. Brent, thank you very much for knocking that one out of the park. Wednesday night, November 19th at 7 p.m., we'll have the Memphis Astrophotography Group Zoom call. And I don't know what the agenda is this month, but this is where learners and teachers get together and help each other with astrophotography and or dive into cool photographic projects together. And it's been a lot of fun. And Merrill Miller is our host for all that work and does a wonderful job.
Yeah, the agenda is coming out tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of open discussions on some really cool topics.
All right. Thank you, Merrill. We have swag. We don't make any money off of it, but if you want to let the world know you're a member of the Memphis Astronomical Society, you can get cool T-shirts, hats, drinkware, golf balls. I don't know, but you can get our logo on it, and it's good advertising for the Memphis Astronomical Society. So. Cafe Press is the source for that stuff. So this is time for another round of elections for the officers and directors. And the election committee tells me we've got basically a full house at this time. The current officers are willing to serve in those positions again. And we've got directors Don Abernathy, Les Dethridge, Clay Folks, John Holderman, and Peter Van Wylen have agreed to fill the director positions. And if that's a full house. So at this time, the I will entertain any open nominations from paying dues paying MAS members that happen to be on the call right now. So if you if you got some ideas, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Going once, twice.
So, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to announce that the uh, nominations for this year's officers and directors is closed. Uh, the vote, of course, will not be necessary, and next month we will announce the officers and directors by acclamation, and we will start out the new year with this slate of dedicated volunteers to help keep this organization moving forward. So that's what I got. So from stock to stellar. So young Mr. Ethan Dugar is has built himself a very fast imaging Newtonian, and we're excited to see how he went by about doing it and what he's got to show us this month. So, Ethan, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to you.
All right. All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. All right. My name is Ethan Dugar, and Steve had asked me to go ahead and give a presentation on this Newtonian, imaging Newtonian that I've built over the past year and have shared with our photography group. It's this telescope right behind me. So we'll start off with what is a Newtonian telescope? So Newtonian is a reflector type telescope that consists primarily with a primary mirror that is typically parabolic and a diagonal secondary mirror to direct light out the side for viewing or imaging. They provide color-free distortion images at the expense of coma and field curvature. However, these can then be corrected with devices such as a coma corrector. Um, Now, as I said, that typically they're parabolic. However, they're not always parabolic. There are some examples that are like a hyperbolic, like the Takahashi epsilons that use a hyperbolic mirror and then a two-element correcting lens to help with the field curvature and coma that is caused by that. And then for cheaper Newtonians, and then if you got a slow Newtonian, you can get away with a sphere. They're easier to make. Um, they just that you'll have spherical aberrations, but at slower f ratios those are become a lot less. All right, so I guess this all started off when I came across this lightweight polymer mirror cell made by Parks Optical on cloudy nights, and I went ahead and purchased it thinking I'd throw it on my shelf and it'd give me some motivation to finally build a telescope I've always wanted to. And so I set out some goals for what I wanted. Um, since the mirror cell was an 8-inch mirror cell, I wanted a 200 millimeter aperture. I was wanting something relatively fast, a little bit faster than the refractor I have that's f6. So I was wanting to get something with the f4 or f5 mirror. Um, at the beginning, I wanted the scope to be a dual purpose scope. However, now that I've learned more about making a Newtonian and the differences between a visual and imaging scope. Although you can do it, there are a lot of compromises you have to give up on. So in the end, I ended up, this is purely an imaging scope without any kind of provisions to do any visual with. Um, I also wanted to get a premium mirrors. However, I was open to just if I could find the right donor scope, then that's what I wanted to do to source my mirrors or possibly even the tube. I wanted a solid one-piece spider. This is primarily to eliminate any flexure due to the veins. Um, let me move this so I can see. Wanted a large enough secondary mirror to support APS-C or full frame with acceptable vignetting. To go along with that, that would require at least a 2-inch focuser, but ideally a 3-inch. Um, I wanted to do a carbon fiber tube if possible, but after looking into pricing to purchase a custom carbon fiber tube, I realized that probably was going to be out of the question unless I came across a donor scope with one. And so I was looking a lot at uh, aluminum tubes. If I did go with a solid tube, I wanted to have a dew shield kind of be one piece with it. Um, I wanted to add 3D printed internal light baffles, have a zero light leak backplate with cooling fans, have provisions for dew prevention on the secondary, and a dual Los Mandy saddle plates so that I could either run all my accessories on top of the telescope or potentially even run another telescope piggyback. So starting off with the mirror cell, one of the first things I did with it was I disassembled it and replaced a lot of the fasteners that were they weren't stainless. So I got stainless steel fasteners, and then all the threaded holes were just threaded right into the polymer. So I went ahead and drilled them out and tapped them for helicoils and used JB Weld when I installed them. That way I had metal on metal contact with all screws and anything like that. And then from there, I went ahead and set out to modeling the mirror cell in CAD. And at any point, towards the end, I might jump over to the CAD software. It'll be a little easier to show y'all some of the stuff. But and then just started playing around with some designs as far as how that mirror cell was going to get supported within the tube. But until I had a mirror and knew its specifications, I really couldn't complete anything with the design. Um, So that kind of leads me to one of the softwares that I use to kind of help with figuring out different dimensions and stuff. And it's this Newtonian or Newt for the web, and it's a telescope computer-aided design program. It helps ray trace your Newtonian telescope design, checks for vignetting, optimizes your diagonal size, can calculate baffle sizes and positions, and do all your different dimensional data for your construction of your telescope. And so on this telescope, I think a lot of the parameters here are for what I ended up having. And so after I still have a few more upgrades I need to make to the telescope, one being the secondary diagonal mirror. It currently only has a 72 millimeter minor axis secondary, but I'm planning to upgrade it to an 88 millimeter. And once I do so, based off these numbers, I should have a 100% illuminated field of view that's roughly 40 or 39 millimeters in diameter, and the 75% illuminated area out to 68 millimeters. So it should be well suited for up to full frame, even though I don't have a full frame camera. So throughout this period, I was searching online, looking for components, looking for mirrors, and different parts that I would need to build this telescope. And I came across this donor scope, which was an Explore Scientific N208CF. Um, it had an 8-inch mirror. It had an f3.9, so it had the speed that I was looking for. And it also happened to have a a carbon fiber tube, which is one of the goals I was wanting to have with this build. Um, and so I ended up, the guy was, I think, out of Georgia. I ended up driving and meeting him in Huntsville to pick it up. And it came with a bunch of accessories, most of which I sold off to help fund the rest of the build, including the Moonlight focuser, which was just a 2-inch focuser, but I decided through some contacts that I have through my Instagram page, I went with a 3-inch micro focuser. All right, so after I got the telescope in, I started disassembling it for the components that I wanted to keep, which is just going to be the secondary mirror, the primary mirror, and the tube itself. During the disassembly of it, the rear mirror cell support screws were rusted and stripped out, so I had to drill them out. And when I removed the mirror cell, I also found some circumferential cracks in the tube, so I went ahead and scalloped all those out, and that's kind of explains the funky cutouts on the end of the tube there. And I went ahead and got to modeling that tube in CAD. And then from here, this is where my inexperience in building Newtonians, one of my first mistakes, I guess, took place. Was I went straight into designing the light baffles, and with the intent of them being also a bit of a structural component for the tube. The tube itself is only about 1.5 millimeters thick, uh, and so it's still kind of flimsy. It's not super stiff. So these baffles were printed in a way and designed in a way to kind of aid in that stiffness, and then were bonded within the tube. But I ended up making it work, but in the end, when I was trying to figure out where my primary mirror would sit, um, I was butting up against the very last baffle. And so this was a step that it really should have waited until I knew where my mirror was going to be within the tube. And this is just a little video I had of when I was bonding in the different baffles. And I used an Infinity Bond MMA adhesive. I went with this type of adhesive over other structural epoxies, um, mostly because it pretty much can bond anything to anything and under any condition with little or no prep needed. And it also has a little bit more giving that the coefficient of thermal expansion between the carbon fiber tube and the 3D printed parts that I used um, is quite different. Um, and talking about the 3D printed parts, all my stuff that I printed was printed off of Bamboo Labs P1S with the 0.6 millimeter hardened nozzle. And I elected to use the ASA carbon fiber filament. It's not necessarily the strongest filament uh, out there. Like a polycarbonate type would probably be a stiffer filament choice, but I went with this one primarily due to its environmental pros, so that it can handle water and UV and other conditions. And since my scope typically sits outside under a cover through the Mississippi summers and winters, I wanted something that would be durable and can handle those temperature swings a lot better. All right, so while I was continuing to piece out components, looking for focusers and different things, I happened to come across this large 2.5-inch coma corrector uh, on cloudy nights that was selling for about half price, and I went ahead and jumped on it. It's a Wayne style coma corrector. It's made up of 3 lens elements, individual elements, compared to the one I sold was the Explore Scientific HR coma corrector, and it's I believe it's 2 sets of achromatic doublets that make up its correction. And so this is the device that will go in at the focuser and will help correct for field flatness and coma. This particular coma corrector should be able to produce a flat field up to 55 or 50 millimeters, I believe. And they do have a newer version that's a 3-inch and it's a little bit shorter. but this one it was good for the price. Here's one of the 3D printed components I had made, which a lot of my design was dictated by my printer and the size that I could print components. I didn't want to do multi-piece components. I wanted to try to have everything as one piece. So that dictated a lot of the diameters and different things, with the printer's bed being 255 millimeters squared, I believe. Um, so this actually just slips right over the tube. It picks up the fasteners that originally held the old end cap that sat on the tube before, and it also was designed to fit with the existing scope cover that I got with the scope. And I guess back to these prints, all these round circular prints. One of the difficulties I had with 3D printing um, was bed adhesion, especially with this ASA. It's very temperature dependent, and it shrinks quite a bit. So you had to design things a lot larger, and then account for the shrinkage to fit. But I ended up settling on using hairspray. It ended up being the best solution for the printer bed and helping things stay adhered to my bed. I also did some custom G code to do a step down on the bed temperature and other things over a longer period of time after a print completed. That way it didn't just cool off very rapidly. From here, I went to designing how I would support the mirror cell within the tube and this mirror cell support. And as you can see on this end, the tube slides in and it kind of creates a little bit of a C channel. It fits over the tube, and then screws will pass through everything into the rear support of the mirror cell. Um, then I also did some unscientific testing of the strength of these 3D printed components, uh, just to see how structural they would be and how much they could hold up. And this is I probably did this over a dozen times. And the ring diameter is right at 255 millimeters, and at the thickest part, it's 9.3 millimeters, and everything was printed circumferentially.
Who needs science?
Yeah, I figured if it can hold me, it could hold the mirror.
That's right.
And then you can also see the internal geometry is designed to fit those scalps that I had made in the tube. That way I didn't have just empty voids. Here's the one-piece secondary spider that I made. The outer ring is 3D printed, as well as the center hub. The vanes were made from carbon fiber. I believe they are 1.5 millimeters thick. I just went with that because that was the sheet I had on me, and felt like it was thin enough. I could have probably gone with a 1 millimeter and it been sufficient. But knowing that I was going to upgrade the secondary mirror to a larger one, I felt the 1.5 would be a better bet. And like I stated in the beginning, so the primary reason for a one-piece secondary spider over the traditional tension vanes is that those tension vanes tend to sometimes get a bit of flexure, especially with heavy secondaries, or if you don't have them perfectly aligned up, and you can get a little bit of wonky diffraction spikes. So this kind of helps ensure you get clean, sharp diffraction spikes. Um, and then the other purpose for the secondary, besides holding the spider, besides holding the secondary mirror, is to provide a way of collimating your secondary. And so the solution I come up with on this was just to have a center bolt that was tensioned by a spring, and then it's basically when the secondary gets threaded on the end of that bolt, it is held tight against the collimation screws. And then you can see over here down in this bottom corner, I even 3D printed a little like turbine nozzle cover to go over that spring. And then for the For the rings, I ended up 3D printing them as well. I had wanted to do a forged carbon composite rails that I would actually bond directly to the tube, but I went all as far as making a mold and everything like that and having them made, but having never done that process before and not being 100% confident, knowing that I would probably have to remake the molds and the amount of extra expenditure into that, I decided to back away from that idea and went with 3D printing them instead after being fairly confident in the strength of these 3D prints. Um, you can see in this bottom center picture, on most of the structural stuff, I went with anywhere from 6 to 8 wall layers, and then with a 50% gyroid infill, so pretty heavy infill on everything. And then I added heat inserts everywhere, just about everywhere, to allow for accessories or mounting of rails and different components. And then in this picture where I'm kind of holding the tube with it kind of assembled, you'll see that I just had two rings made, but I ended up settling and decided to make a third ring just to be safe. But I feel pretty confident in these 3D printed parts that they'll hold up for quite a while. Through my Instagram page, I made some acquaintances with this company called Starpoint Australia out of Perth, Australia. And they had just developed a 3-inch micro focuser. And so I got to talking with them and ended up meeting them at NEAF and got one of their focusers for the build. So this kind of helps a lot and is large enough to support the large coma corrector that I ended up getting as well. Starpoint, they also make these observing tents you can see in the one picture that are pretty neat that you can take to star parties and different things. And it opens up on the top so you can have your telescope and everything there. So it's a portable observatory. And then as far as the dew heater, I reached out to another company that I had gotten to know through Instagram, R Sky Astro Instruments, to see if they could come up with a solution to work with my existing secondary mirror holder. Um, and they came up with this folded design that was mounted over the rib, and they actually now offer this as a standard product that you can buy. Um, I had mounted the wire and routed it along one of the vanes, and it goes out through a little 3D printed part that I made on the end of the telescope to house the connector for the wire. And this just kind of keeps everything nice and clean without anything dangling, and makes setups real easy.
Hey, Ethan, which part of that is the heater?
So the heater is actually, I don't know, can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so it's actually this. It wraps around here. You can see it kind of wrapping around. So it wraps around this rib on the secondary. Now it
Yeah.
does protrude a little bit beyond the secondary. However, I'm planning to upgrade my secondary to a larger one, and then it will be completely in the shadow. But even with it slightly protruding, there is really no negligible effect you don't see anything in your images or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So even though I had a lot of the dimensions and specifications needed to design this telescope and figure out where everything needed to be placed, some of the design specs with this new coma corrector were unknown. So I can know where my imaging plane was depending on wherever the mirror was set in my CAD model. Um, However, I didn't quite know where the coma corrector needed to be in relation to that imaging plane to properly reach focus, essentially. So we ended up ballparking a lot of those measurements, and I ended up 3D printing some different adapters you can see that attach the coma corrector at different spaces. And I printed one of my prototype rear mirror support cells to and just basically attach it to the end of the tube with fishing line, and then drove out behind my neighborhood threw it on top of my car and tried to focus on the distant tree line. And from there, I was able to nail down exactly where my coma corrector needed to be and what distance spacing it needed to come from the focuser. That way, my micro focuser only has about 15 millimeters of travel, so I got it right now set up to where it's right in the middle of it, reaching focus. And then it also allowed me to figure out exactly where that mirror cell needed to be placed so that I could 3D print my final design for that rear support. And it actually took 3 attempts on that, but there's the final one. From there, I went to designing the end cap and cooling fan system. It was made from the leftover bit of carbon fiber sheet that I had, and I 3D printed the outer ring to then fit within the end cap of the mirror cell support on the rear of the telescope. Uh, I did some different wiring on it so that it can be powered both directly via 12 volt, and there's a speed controller on the back of that panel. Likewise, you can use those different switches to cut off the speed controller, and then I can plug it directly in as if it's a dew heater, and then use my Pegasus Astro power box to control the fan speed electronically via the laptop. And then this is just a diagram, kind of this cutaway diagram shows how the air is being forced into the chamber and essentially pressurizing the inside of the telescope behind the mirror, and then forcing air up and around the mirror, across the face, and then out through the tube to help with currents and tube currents and different things. All right, and then that pretty much completed the build. This first image here shows everything that I had designed and 3D printed for the build, and then the full model, and then the completed telescope.
Wow.
This is one of the first images I took, was of the moon, and also one of the first issues I realized I had, which was the secondary mirror was not quite centered, and so I had a pretty severe vignetting going on. Here's an image I've taken of M5. This was about 1.5 hours long, taken with my modified Canon T4i. And this is actually a crop. It's actually the picture, the field of view is a bit bigger out this way. And the Cygnus wall. This was about 7.5 hours worth of imaging with a dual narrowband filter.
Excellent.
So some updates and improvements. One of the big issues I have is with my modified Canon. It's got a bit of sensor tilt. When I modified it and put the sensor back in, I didn't probably get it perfectly flat. And so that's not something I can easily correct without disassembling that camera. But I've recently picked up a dedicated Astro camera that has tilt adjustment on the rear of it. So that should help a lot with this fast Newtonian because they're very susceptible to tilt. The other issue I currently am still dealing with is the back spacing. So this is the spacing between my coma corrector and the camera itself. I don't quite have it just right. It's with it being such a fast scope, it's very finicky, and you got to get it very precise. So right now, I still have quite a bit of curvature in my field. And then, as I previously mentioned, one of the upgrades I need to make is a larger secondary. Right now, I'm just using the one that came with the donor scope, but I do plan to upgrade it to a slightly larger one that should give me a larger illuminated field of view for the 100% as well as 75% field. I also got some fancy cat's eye collimation tools to help with collimating the scope versus just the cheap laser that's there in the center. and some future projects that I've got going on. So I'm working on designing an 8-inch travel dob that's going to fit inside of a Pelican carry-on case. That way I can easily take it with me wherever I want to go for visual viewing. To help with that project, I happened to come across this CNC router, and I picked it up off of Facebook Marketplace, and I'm hoping to use that to route plywood or carbon fiber sheets and different things. I've got this pottery wheel that I got from my father. I guess it's on loan until he says he wants to do pottery again, but I don't know. It's been in our garage for 20, 30 years. So I went ahead and got it from him, and I'm hoping to convert it into a makeshift mirror grinding machine because one of my next things I would like to attempt is grinding my own mirror for a Newtonian telescope. As well, whenever I get to doing that, I'm going to need to be able to test the mirror. So I've been studying a bit on optics testing with focal testing, and I've built this bath laser interferometer as well set up to try to characterize the mirrors as I start grinding them. That's about it. I appreciate y'all for joining, and if you got any questions.
Wow, thank you, and what a nice piece of equipment you have. So, well done. Anyone have questions?
Yeah, Ethan, you kind of glossed over. You committed to doing an astrophotography scope compared
Yes.
to a visual. I would think, just from my perspective, you design to the astrophotography for the preciseness, and then the visual should plug right in. But that's clearly not accurate, is it?
And you can. So I guess I should say that so the big downsides on here. So with a visual telescope, especially with a Newtonian, you have a secondary mirror and that creates an obstruction in your center of view. That's going to reduce your contrast and other things on that telescope. So when you're using a visual telescope, you usually want to try to have as small as secondary mirror as possible to increase your contrast when viewing with your eye. Uh, when you're using a camera, that's not as big of an issue with a sensitive camera. And then you're typically looking for field of view for whatever size camera sensor you're using. So in this case, I have quite a large secondary and we'll be going to even a larger secondary. So that alone is not optimal for a visual telescope.
I
The
got
other
it.
thing is everything's going to line up and focus, where your camera set is going to be focused with a chroma corrector versus where your different eyepieces are going to be in focus is going to be different. So you can either accommodate that either using different attachments and spacers, and you may not have enough travel in your focuser for that, or it may require that your eyepiece is just sticking way far out compared to where your camera would be, or vice versa. And then the other option is you can maybe have different positions for the mirror to be. So if your tube is long enough, and in my case, my tube was not long enough to do any additional spacing to allow that mirror to be put at different spots for visual or for imaging use.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I never thought about the size of the secondary, but that'd be a huge factor for visual.
Yep.
Steve, I've got an 8-inch Ritchie Creation that's for imaging, right?
Hmm.
And and I thought the same thing when I bought it. I thought, well, it's going to be an excellent imaging telescope, but it'll be decent for visual use. No, it is horrible for
Okay.
visual use. It was such a disappointment when 2-inch diagonal, 2-inch eyepieces, all this stuff, and I look through it and go, this is terrible.
Okay.
Uh, you know, so I've got my 13-inch Dob for visual use and this 8-inch Ritchie Creation for imaging. And to Ethan's point, the Ritchie Creation's got 3 spacers for the focuser to adjust the setback depending on what kind of camera you're using and any other stuff you're using in the imaging train. But the beauty of it is with this Ritchie Creation design, you talk about flat field and no
Hmm.
coma. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous for imaging. So,
And one more question, Ethan. If you could go back a slide or two. Oh yeah, go forward one. There. That little 8-inch travel. Are you telling me? First of all, what is the dimension of that case?
I think it's roughly 20-ish inches on the inside by 11 and a half,
Okay, so you're gonna put a
about eight
dive
inches
there.
deep.
So you're reverse engineering a case to put a dive in there, right?
Yeah, I think some people probably have already done it or come pretty close to this, so
Okay.
it's not 100% new territory, I guess. But yeah, I'm just it's just going to be a very lightweight Dobsonian that is either going to pack into it. I haven't quite decided if it's going to completely pack into it and be its own little telescope once you take it out and assemble it, or if somehow the case itself is going to be part of the structure to help support
That's a
the
clever idea.
telescope. So.
That'd be interesting to see what you end up.
But my hope is the it's going to be a truss tube design. The tubes will be made up of three each tube, so there'll be 8 tubes for the trusses, and each of those tubes is going to be 3 components, so that I can break it down and fit inside that lid, the length, overall length, and then hopefully there'll be room as well to hold 2 or 3 eyepieces. So basically, it'll be a viewing package all in one.
Excellent.
let me say this. If there's any other members out there interested in amateur telescope making, I have 3. Dobb, their former member of the Memphis Astronomical Society, a guy named Ross Sackett, is a Stellafane amateur telescope award-winning builder, and he had some of the most gorgeous woodwork in his portable Dobbs. But he'd make these ultralight Dobbs with one arm secondary. So there's one of them's carbon fiber tube, the other ones are aluminum. But I've got the frames, the rocker box, the mirror cell, and the arm, I think, for 3 of his telescopes that basically, when he was done with them, he disassembled them, did something else with the optics, and was about to throw all these away when he moved to Arizona. And they're just too pretty to let him throw away. So I grabbed them up. I know that I think it's an 8, a 14, and a 8, a 12, and a 16 or something. I was hoping one of
I think that's what when you sent me the pictures of them. I think that's
yeah,
what they were.
I was hoping one of them I could use for the mirror out of my 13-inch Coulter, so I could build something with a lighter and easier to pick up than my old particle board and sonotube Coulter that I love so much, but no joy.
Yeah, I think it's just tiny, too tiny, I think, for the 13-inch. I think
It was just just a little too small.
it may be we can maybe open it up though.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. I'm trying to reach out to him, Rick. He's a teacher at University of Memphis.
he
He
retired.
well, I think he still teaches. He's still listed there. He probably takes a class.
Maybe.
And
But
he's
he lives in New Mexico or Arizona. One.
oh, okay.
He doesn't live here anymore, and
Okay.
and he's also quite the artist. But he was
Yeah.
anthropology professor at University of Memphis. So, well, Ethan, if there are no other questions, I've got to
Um,
tell you, it's
I
absolutely fabulous to look at what good work you did on all that. And
um I have one question. Sorry.
go
Yes.
ahead.
Hi. My name is Kodrick. I'm new to the astrophotography, and I have a refractor telescope. So I have 2 questions. The first one to Ethan is, what was the focal ratio of the donor telescope? And to make it a fast imaging telescope, did you have to move the secondary mirror like closer to the primary mirror to make the focal ratio like
No,
smaller?
so the coma corrector that I have is actually a 0.97, so it actually reduces the effective focal length of the system, just due to the nature of the design of that wing corrector. And so that's what actually sped up the telescope and made it even faster. Um,
Okay.
trying to
Yeah,
get,
I'm new to the Newtonian. I'm learning. Yeah.
there we go. So there's the original spec. So it was originally 812 millimeter focal length with a f3.9 mirror, and then the mirror itself is actually 208 millimeters. And I masked the mirror down to I think 203 millimeters to help with any potential rolled edges or anything or problems that the mirror itself probably has, especially being such a fast mirror and being a commercial mass-produced mirror.
Okay. Thanks.
Rick, Godric is a brand new member, and you'll be announcing him next month. Just
Oh,
All right.
that's fine. Thank you.
Well, and we've got, of course, we've got the astrophotography group meeting as well, and
please,
you'll find a
please join
lot.
us.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So, Ethan, for making a presentation tonight, you'll get a highly sought after and desired Memphis Astronomical Society coffee cup,
Oh, nice.
but a very special one in the uh, featured speaker coffee mug. So, thank you very much. We'll
Awesome.
also get you an LED, a red LED nightlight with Memphis Astronomical
Well,
Society
I need a new
logo.
keychain because mine had broke, and so now it just sits on my desk against some other stuff I've got leaning up on my desk.
So we'll get that to you as soon as we can. And thank you very much. And for all the rest of you out there that really want to get hold of one of these, you cannot buy one. The only way you get one of these is to make a presentation for the Memphis Astronomical Society. Thank you.
And I guess I should go ahead and mention that I had gotten with you, Rick, a couple weeks back, and gotten a lot of the supplies that you had that was donated for mirror making and grinding of mirrors. And there's several completed mirrors and different. I think there was a doublet lens cell. That's if
Yeah.
someone wanted to make a refractor. So if anyone's got an interest in designing a telescope or making a telescope or anything like that, feel free to reach out. We've got a lot of equipment and different supplies that we could probably get to you and you can utilize.
I think there's a couple of 6-inch kits in
Hmm.
there or something. And yeah, so and maybe I'll start a sub club inside of the Memphis Astronomical Society, amateur telescope builders. So,
There you go.
all right. Well, I thank you very much, everyone. Until next month, Steve, what have we got on the agenda for next month? You're on mute.
Thank you. We're going to get the band together, a bunch of members that they don't even know they're presenting yet. We're going to talk about, before Christmas, some telescopes that maybe you ought to consider purchasing. The differences between them, the strengths and weaknesses. So you're going to be one of those speakers, Rick. And then we might even pull in Ethan to talk about Newtonians.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really quick. Everybody's going to talk 5 to 10 minutes on a scope, just so that anybody who's interested in purchasing a telescope for the holidays, or anybody who just interested in getting one on their own, this would be a good talk to, because this industry is changing fast.
Yes, it is.
So the presentation that Rick gave 6 years ago would you say it's worthless, Rick?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So
I
that's
wouldn't
what
make
we
the
hope to
same
do.
recommendations today that I did then, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So that's what we hope to do.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to doing this again next month. And y'all have a good evening. Take care.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks.
Ethan, we really appreciate it. Take
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to share.
Night, John Boy.
care.